Welcome to Tales from the Bridge.
This is Marty.
And this is Kevin.
And this is Sam.
And I'm Tristan. In this episode, we're talking about Semiosis by Sue Burke. We talked to Sue a few weeks ago, so go check out that episode if you haven't heard it yet. We start things off with some science fiction science fact, and be sure to stick around for some trivia at the end. Let's make our way over to the bridge.
Well, I got to talk to you guys a bit about stuff that's orbiting Earth. And, you know, as old a piece of equipment as it is, the International Space Station has come up in the news just recently here, kind of in a bad way, because they're now talking explicitly about when and how they're going to dump that thing. They're saying in 2031, they're going to let it deorbit, and it will make it through Earth's atmosphere, or parts of it will, and it's going to land out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And they've said specifically where it is, and they've gone out of their way to be very detailed about how this, 80-meter long behemoth is going to die. So I have a question. Do you guys think that's actually going to happen? Do you think they're going to deorbit the thing, or do you think something else is going to happen to it?
No, I don't see why they would. Why would you take out something that has resource? I mean, the space station is a resource. There's steel, there's parts, whether they're obsolete or not, why wouldn't you use them for the next thing you're going to make out there? Or maybe it's in a kind of orbit that's hard to just grab.
Yeah, is it a decaying orbit, or maybe it's not?
They have to boost it. They have to boost it fairly regularly because it's in low Earth orbit. And I think, as I understand it, the challenge is that it's just big and expensive, and it's decaying. So there's some micro cracks in some of the components that some of the Russian cosmonauts are concerned are going to become a problem over the next little while without replacement. And so I think what they're saying is that they could devote money to other things. But this is what I'm thinking. Okay, so I'm sort of driving you guys down a path that may be wrong, but I think private interests are going to say, hey, wait a minute now, don't deorbit that thing. Don't let it crash into the Pacific. I think we can make money from this thing. We can use it as a jumping off point, or we can use it for space tourism, and we can fix it up,
I think you're right.
That'd be cool. I hope so. Yeah. It would be a waste. Yeah.
Total
waste. I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused. It's gonna make it to the ocean? Like, isn't it just gonna burn up? Or is
not
it
all
too
of
big
it
to burn up?
Too big, apparently. I mean,
I think it'd be a really interesting one.
Yeah, I think the analogy would be almost like buying a nuclear submarine. Because if you had a 40-year-old nuclear submarine, would you trust the reactor? And would you trust the pressure, the hull of it to hold the pressure out if you bring it down into the bottom of the ocean? A lot of people would be kind of like, I don't know if I really want to do that or not, especially with the these astronauts and cosmonauts saying that they question the rigidity of the hull for keeping air in, right? That's a frightening thing when you're in space.
Yeah, I guess it's an intensely harsh environment, and maybe that's just the lifespan of materials in orbit. You got a certain amount of time, and then it's done, and there's nothing cheap about it, But
it may also be a matter of the rest of our technology catching up to be able to, like, we have all this sci-fi, almost so many sci-fi tropes have, like, the salvage ship, right? The ship that goes around, scrappy little independent company that finds salvage in space and uses the good stuff, right, and sells it off. And that's probably possible. It's just we don't have the rest of the infrastructure yet, right? We don't have those salvage ships. We don't have, like, somebody that can run up there with a booster and strap it on, like, the part that they want, and then boost it into a higher orbit. Maybe that would be possible and doable. But we just don't have the space industry, right? Like, all the rest of the sort of supporting infrastructure and technology that it would take to be able to, like, take that thing apart for the valuable bits and move them where you need them. I think that part's probably pretty hard. If they need to be boosting it all the time just to keep it in an orbit with what it's got, maybe it just doesn't have the power to boost it further into, like, the orbit of a more useful, like, to put it into the Lagrange point where they're building the new one, right? Maybe they just don't have that, and it seems like probably a hard thing to do, to, like, bring bigger boosters to attach to the thing to bring it to where you want it. Yeah, maybe we'll be doing that in the future, but not yet.
I think that's where it's at. Even if they don't have something to do with it right off the bat, rather than deorbiting it, for reasonable price, you can get a nice Falcon 9 to chuck up a big can of compressed air, and I'm simplifying this, and you strap it to the bottom of it, and you just boost it up into a really high orbit. You depressurize all the units, and over the next decade, you try to figure out what to do with it. And rather than destroying it, just keep it up there, because the amount of effort, decades worth of effort, it just seems like, and there is a thing. This is called the fallacy of sunk costs, right? We've sunk so much cost into this thing that we feel like we have to keep it, but I still kind of think we should.
Well, I think in space too. There's just a very basic economic equation of like how much it costs to put a piece of mass, a certain size, up there, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can just calculate the total mass of that thing and how much it costs to just boost it off the Earth into orbit. That's sunk cost that you won't have to spend again in the future if you do manage to keep that stuff. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
The Chinese space station was in the news recently, and I was just sort of taking a look at that, and it's not quite as big as, it's about the same size as Mir, the Russian space station, and it's called the Tiangong space station. My apologies for the pronunciation, but it translates as Palace in the Sky, which is a lovely name for a space station. But once completed, the Tiangong space station will have a mass of between 80 and 100 T, whatever that is.
Tons?
1/5 the mass of the international... Oh, tons, yeah, that makes sense. Roughly 1/5 the mass of the International Space Station. So nowhere near as big, I guess, but it's... maybe they don't need the space anymore, right? Like you can just, as the gear gets, I don't know, more modern and technology advances, everything gets smaller and more effective and efficient, and you don't have to have a football field floating in low orbit that is maybe higher maintenance than something that's small, lean, and mean. I'm totally unqualified here to be talking about any of this, but it just sort of connected me to seeing the Chinese station in the news this week, because it's a cool robot that crawls around and works on it.
NASA said they're just deprioritizing that, and they want to. It's all about Moon and Mars. Moon and Mars.
Right.
That's what they want.
Ever wondered what it takes to make it in the movie business? Peel back the curtain with 4-6 Success Filmmaking. 4-6 Success Filmmaking is where filmmakers share their stories and the secrets.
It's beyond competitive out there.
There have been movies that it's taken me 10 years to get made.
Don't wait to create. You've got to just keep making stuff.
Tune into 4-6 Success Filmmaking for your dose of cinematic realness, direct from the voices that have lived it.
I'd say just boost it out to the Lagrange point, and in 50 to 100 years, we sell tickets as a haunted space station. It'll just be for tourism.
A haunted space station. Perfect.
Yeah.
There's the solution.
Yeah.
So it only takes me about a year to listen to you guys and to take your advice. Just remember that.
Okay.
But I watched Love, Death, and Robots, first 4 episodes, 4, maybe 5, and I'm excited to visit that because I actually don't watch these long series. Even the Boba Fett series, I've watched 2 or 3. Maybe by the end of this year, I will have finished that. I don't know what it is, but I can't get into these long serials. So Love, Death, and Robots is like perfect. So thank you guys. I don't know how I didn't know about this, but what a great show that is. It's so diverse. Every episode is different. I don't even want to say episode. Every short film is different. The animation is always so different. It comes from different studios. And then of course we spoke with John Scalzi, who has written I think he said 4 episodes on that, or should I call them episodes? I guess you call them shorts. I guess, but just shorts within the Love, Death, Robots. What a great show. The imagination and the diversity is just, that's alone, diversity just like stands out, because now you watch one, you didn't like it, big deal. Watch the next one, you didn't like it, big deal. You're gonna find one very quickly, from what I imagine, even though I'm only 4 or 5 in.
Yeah. And this, if anybody didn't pick up on that, this is that Netflix series. It's an animated series called Love, Death, and Robots, which is, like you said, Tristan, super accessible. There's something for everybody, because all the episodes are so different. There's love, there's death, there's robots, something for everyone.
Yeah, and they're short, right? Like you're not investing in like an hour-long episode or like some long series of 10 episodes. They're all independent and disconnected, and they're just like little gems. And I love what our conversation with John Scalzi was so great that, he told us about the inner workings of how that happened, right? Like he wrote some of all my favorite, I think, episodes of that. And it was so obvious to me in retrospect. Once I didn't know that he had written any of them. And once I, found out which ones he wrote, it's totally his sense of humor. It's totally, off the wall, wacky, very, all the funniest ones were by John Scalzi, but they weren't even by John Scalzi. They were just only partly by John Scalzi. And this is even more interesting, right? He said, he wrote like a little script that he could read, like what's it called? Automated personal service or something. What was it? Automated customer service. It's the first episode, I think, of the second season. It's one of my favorites. It's about a Roomba that basically goes haywire. And it turns out, he had written just the automated personal service part, like, what you would hear from this automated customer service, if something had gone wrong. And he used to just get up on stage and read, this thing, and it was funny. But then, that's just the seed. And then it goes to the rest of the production team, some animation studio, right? And these guys all get together, and they filled in the characters. They made up the characters that are actually in there. They put in, the charm and the wit and a whole bunch of other things. So it was a great, for a 10-minute animated short, an amazing sort of class on everything that goes into making something like that, right? There's so many different parts to creative genius or creative, effort. And it was really cool. So yeah, it was great. And the yogurt episode, he wrote the yogurt episode. You'll know which one that is once you see it.
Yeah, it's a peek into why there's like animated films have such long credits.
Yeah. Yeah. Or any film. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
The book of the month is Semiosis by Sue Burke. Marty had read this before all of us. Even before I even heard of it, I believe. It's Sue Burke's first book. And I believe the first time I heard about it would have been Adrian Tchaikovsky mentioning it. And then I believe David Brin mentioned this. Mm-hmm. And so it piqued my curiosity. And after reading what it's about, plants that can think and communicate on a different planet, wow, that's right up my alley. Let's try something new. Trying something new, I should say, is up my alley. I've never heard of a concept like this, so let's give it a go. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was really cool to read about characters that were generational. I liked how we got the story, so it made it bigger. We weren't just hearing about the crew of humans that just landed on Pax and their experiences. We got to hear about the crew that landed on Pax and the generation afterwards, and them creating a society, and then the children afterwards. But we also got to hear about the history as well, with them telling stories about their parents or the people that were important from the generations earlier. And then, of course, the most likable character is not human, which for some reason I'm really liking these days. And just to go back to Adrian Tchaikovsky, Children of Time, like I've never had a crush on a spider before, but I love Portia. Like he just does such a good job at anthropomorphizing the spiders in that book. And Sue Burke was completely successful in doing that with Steveland, the bamboo, or more specifically, what kind of bamboo, guys? Do you remember?
Rainbow bamboo.
Rainbow bamboo.
Rainbow bamboo. And at first, I wasn't sure if I liked the character of Steveland, if he could be trusted. And it turns out, yeah, you can trust him, but what are his motives, and what does he consider right and wrong, and what is his ability to relate to humans even accurate to how we relate to ourselves, which was a great theme for me, which is a creature or a living thing, Steveland, who is plant-based, a rainbow bamboo, who's connected by some sort of, I mean, we don't get a great description of how Steveland thinks, but we know that there's connection through roots, and that the soil, he's constantly taking nutrients from the soil to think better, to grow, to understand more. And he kind of, and we say he because that's how we refer to him in the books. He even grows new parts of his plant body to adapt to us, to be able to hear us, or to make sounds so we can hear him. But we talked with Sue, and she was just fantastic to talk to. She's a straight shooter. She answered all our questions really well. We were able to get into some deep conversations, and she gave us a good understanding of where she was coming from as an author with the Semiosis book. And I find it just quite impressive that this is her debut book, and she was able to do this so well. And also interesting because she's friends with Adrian Tchaikovsky, who has probably written my favorite book. So the relationship between the two authors and their books, I find intriguing, and I want to dig more into both of their work, because it seems to be aligned with the kind of adventure I want to go on. So I'm very excited to read Sue's work further. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I want to hear what you think.
Now, listen, I like this book. I liked Interference even better, probably. I totally agree with what you're saying about the ideas in this book and the interesting novelty, the novum, right, of an intelligent plant interfacing or interacting with humans. The only thing I want to warn people about, when I was reading it, sort of, I got about halfway and I was like, oh, okay, this is all really interesting, but the writing is a little stiff. It's a little, stiff. I don't know how else to put it. And I read her bio and I was like, oh, she's a journalist. It's written like a journalist writing a science fiction book to me. I thought it's just a little bit too, like, here's a fact, here's another fact, here's what they said, here's what the other guy said. And there was something about it that by the time I got to end of Semiosis, I was like, oh, okay. I enjoyed it. It was great. The ideas were good, but it was a little, let's say, Asimovian, right? Like, where the writings are just a little bit drab. And then I started Interference, and again, it like swept me away. Lots of cool ideas. And again, about halfway in, I was like, now I'm having the same experience as I had in Semiosis halfway through. And what is that? And now I don't want to say in Interference, I had another insight. I was like, oh, the part of the problem here for me is that she's intentionally writing in stilted language, because her characters are either colonists, who have come to a new place, and they're generations and generations later, and their language, she's translating from like a language that has become simplified. And also she's translating from the language of glassmakers who communicate in scents, like smells, as well as words, and so their language is also simplified. And then you get Steveland, who's also like, she's doing a good job of translating from other languages and other ways of communicating into English, and so it's like a simplified English that you get from a lot of the different characters in different ways. But then, at some point you're like, okay, I'm a little bit tired of reading stilted English. And And that's okay. Like it's like succeeding to, for me, I was totally willing to forgive it. It just became a less enjoyable experience than it could have been. But I don't know how she could have gotten around that, right? Like she's actually doing the job that she's supposed to be doing of like demonstrating to you how these various different people and species and characters need to talk in order to sort of find this common ground of like simplified English. But it gets a little tiresome to be reading simplified English, for hundreds of pages after a while. So that was my only complaint. And since I've been complaining about stuff, I'm just going to lay that out there. I'm the complainer. I'm going to try to be more positive, like with my films and TV and movies. But the ideas were great. The story was unpredictable. I loved the ending of Semiosis and also in Interference. There's sort of like a climactic event in both books, like 3/4 of the way through or just before the end, right? Where like there's a big battle or there's a big scene. There's, something that comes. And I think she pulled that off in high style. It's really, I really appreciated it. It stands out in my mind and my memory as sort of one of these scenes that really is unique in my reading experience, and everybody should read it. Go for it. Yep, there you go. I liked it.
I think she's a self-proclaimed hard sci-fi author, right? She said that the books needed to be internally consistent, and you're right. That translation thing was interesting because she's also a translator, like from Spanish to English. She's a professional translator. And she's been writing for a long time, right? This might be her first novel. She's written many novelettes, and I think something like 30 short stories that have been published. So, and that's over the last 15, 20 years. So she's done a lot of writing in the past. And this one I think it was nominated for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. And, but yeah, I take your point, Marty, certainly. I often ignore that stuff, and I forget about that, oh yeah, the writing is important, and it really is. But again, the ideas here are pretty cool. I thought her perspective around how this feral society, as you put it, can progress with a ton of technological background, but without a lot of technology. And she did a neat job of seeing what society could look like if it was intentionally designed around kind of a different approach. They called themselves the pacifists, right? So that alone is pretty noteworthy, that the name of their culture were the pacifists. And so they acted with empathy and with understanding in circumstances where we wouldn't have otherwise. Like think of when the glassmakers attacked their village. They had the opportunity to just wipe them out, and they didn't. They went in and they brought them into their fold and tried to ensure that they were able to integrate with them, because they knew that they would be stronger with them. Right. And so that obviously Sue is trying to write that in as an advantageous evolutionary process that could help humanity, I think.
Also, I have to mention central theme and central conclusion of Adrian Tchaikovsky's Children of Time, right? Like the same thing happens there, that this sort of like radical empathy and inclusion of the enemy rather than destruction.
Yeah. It's to our benefit to try to not wipe them out, but include them into our fold, right? The other is not the other. It can be part of the us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she, I also thought was really cool when she was talking about the generations, how the generations differentiated themselves so much from each other. They, through their dress, through their hairstyles, and so they almost didn't associate that much. Generation 5 was different from Generation 6. She kept saying how Generation 6 thinks this way and Generation 5 thinks that way. It's almost like cliques based on the generations. And I guess if you came from a generation starship and you landed on a planet where the generations are getting exponentially bigger, how that could actually be very significant. Like we kind of ignore it. We have Gen Y, Gen X, baby boomers, and we talk about it from time to time, but it's not super relevant, but it could be in this context. Yeah, it's not discrete. Anyway, I also went quickly on and read all of Interference, and I am waiting for the third book, which Sue said that she's writing, and she told us the title of it. So
I don't remember. It was good though. It was a neat title.
It'll be in the episode that we published with the interview with her. But I'm going to be interested to hear about more rainbow bamboo drama, because there'll be more rainbow bamboo drama occurring, because that one, Interference, really left it on an interesting ending.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a third vote for recommendation of this book, Semiosis.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I wasn't blown away by it, but it was good. It was original, and I agree with you, Marty. It does come through in the writing style. It does feel a little bland and pragmatic at times, and it seems to lack a certain spark to it, and it was a bit of a slow start. But once it started going for me, I kind of clicked with it. And because it kind of has this, and maybe I'm the only one who feels this, I'm sure, but it sort of had a sort of Planet of the Apes sci-fi feel to me, because of this sort of low tech world and low tech. I mean, everything's kind of low tech. It's very sort of, they're living off the land very much, and so for me, it kind of had that vibe to it, and I kind of dig that, and so that kind of, I connected with that piece of it, and the idea of plant as a sentient life that can evolve, or plants that can evolve into sentience. I thought just was a great idea and totally new and original, and I hadn't seen it before, and so I appreciated it for those things. But yeah, the writing kept slowing me down, like the style slowed me down a bit. And you're right, she's writing a totally foreign language. What does a plant language sound like or come across? So I get that, but it made it it made it a different kind of read, where I liked it, but I wasn't pulled along. I think that's a Marty saying, a book kind of pulls you along, and I like that. And this didn't quite do that for me, but I read the whole thing. I enjoyed it. I didn't want to put it down, but I wasn't like looking at my clock at one in the morning going, oh crap, I got work in the morning, but just one more chapter. It didn't do that for me. But and the stakes always felt high too, like, because I never knew to trust Steveland the plant, right? Like I always felt like anyone can die here, and and so that's a hard thing. That's a hard balance to strike, I think, to have the stakes feel a little unpredictable, and to not really, like, I couldn't call it. I didn't know where it was going to end and how it was going to end. So that, I think, is a good sign of things too in a read. So yeah, it was good. And that's sort of there was things I liked about it, and there was things I was kind of okay with, like, and so that's what I'm struggling with, coming out very definitively on this. I kind of in this sort of gray area with this book, where I enjoyed it. It was good. I'm not like running to read the second one, but I probably will, and then I'll read the third one as well. It's a series that I'll finish, but I'm not looking at publishing days to see when, so right. But it's a good book, and that's good enough sometimes, right? So yeah. Anyways, that's my hot take.
Nice.
What are we reading next? Should we get right into that or something else?
Oh yeah. Hey, it's my turn again. Right. Well,
no, I think we're skipping Marty. Sam, what do you got first?
Oh man,
no. I'm gonna make you read something hard and dreadful and really emotionally intense. Sorry, too bad.
No, I had a comic book lined up for you. It was gonna be taking 20 minutes.
We are going to read Octavia Butler, because it's about time we did. So it's certainly one of her most famous books, called The Parable of the Sower. Now, Octavia Butler wrote this in 1996. She's a Black author, a Black woman, kind of really evokes, for me, I've started reading this and now I see, like, oh, okay, it reminds me right away of N.K. Jemisin's work that I recommended 4 months ago, the 5th season. So it's not a happy, pleasant book. It's definitely a post-apocalyptic, It's very literary, I would say, from what I've seen so far. It's the Hugo Award was given for the graphic novel adaptation of The Parable of the Sower this year, and I hear the movie rights are in play. I won't be surprised if we see a movie of The Parable of the Sower soon. And it's a I don't know if it's trilogy. It certainly has a sequel called Parable of the Talents. Which I'm looking forward to reading as well. So let's do it. Let's get into Octavia Butler, and I think it's an important cultural icon of science fiction that we are all starting to appreciate more and more, and I think it's going to expand our horizons.
Yeah, I'm excited. This will be great. I have to admit, I'm into it, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, this is can you defeat the evil Power Master? The evil Power Master will destroy the galaxy, but not if you and your friends can stop him. Make risky choices, collect bizarre data, and face mortal challenges, all to save the Laconian system from doom. Play again and again to uncover more secrets and more exciting endings. So this goes to one of you three. Oh. And the theme for this week, in an effort to promote our new Facebook group for Tales from the Bridge, is based on postings over the past couple of weeks that have gone up in the Tales from the Bridge Facebook page. So,
good one.
So we're going to test how closely you've been paying attention to all the cheap sharing that I've been doing on the page. Question number 1. At which specific Lagrange point did the James Webb Telescope arrive at?
L2.
Oh,
Kevin. Kevin. All right.
I know my Lagrange points.
Nice, Kevin.
Yes, well done.
One.
All right. Question number 2. How old is the oldest computer ever discovered? Hint, this was on a shipwreck recently.
I'm going to say 3,200 years ago.
I am going to say, I think you guys are right. I've heard of this thing, and it's like an ancient...
Say $1.
Artifact.
$1.
So I'm going to say 2,500. There you go.
I'm going to say 28 now, just to go in between what I was saying.
And I'm going to aim low. I'm going to go 23. Yeah.
All right.
And is this, we're closest without going over, or can we go over?
You can go over. It's not totally Price is Right here. And Marty gets that one. So it's 2,000 years old.
Dang it.
All right. 2,000. Yeah. Can you tell us more about it, Sam? I only vaguely remember what this thing is. It's like some kind of astrolabe, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. So considered the world's first analog computer, this marvel of ancient engineering used dozens of bronze gears to predict the positions of the moon, sun, and 5 planets, as well as the timing of solar and lunar eclipses. Divers discovered this Antikythera mechanism, I'm pronouncing that totally wrong, while exploring a Roman-era shipwreck in 1901, but the ancient computer was in far from pristine condition. Only about a third of it survived its 2,000 years underwater. They found it on a boat. They're probably using it for navigation, right?
Yeah.
All right, question number 3. Scientists recently found evidence of a multi-dimensional universe. Where did they find it?
In the mind.
That's right.
Brain. 11 dimensions, apparently. I didn't really quite understand that article, to be honest. It's super weird. But I guess they must have Now, I did a PhD on principal component analysis. So this is where you just take a bunch of data and you chop it up into the different dimensions that cover the most, that span the largest differences, I guess you could say, along different dimensions. So you sort of create dimensions by chopping up data and correlating it along different directions.
There was talk of Aumua, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm on a roll today. This was the
Umawa, something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they arrived at a number of how long it would take to catch up with it. Does anyone remember?
22 years.
I got a 22 because we're back into the prices right here.
Yeah.
Oh, bam, just like that.
But we can go over.
You can go over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's not exactly the right answer?
No.
Okay, so
we're taking
so Kevin's saying 22. Marty, you want to go, or?
I'm going to say 200.
100 for Marty. Where you at, Tristan?
We got 200 and then 22. Wouldn't it be logical to just go in the middle of that?
Probably, yeah.
You're right. I think.
I'm gonna say April the 27th. No, I'm just kidding. I'll say 110.
Kevin is the closest.
Oh yeah,
26.
26 years. Yeah.
26. Okay,
good.
Nice.
All right, Kevin and Marty, you're tied.
Yep, I'm out of the game, but you too.
All right. Scientists recently got a peek at the terrain of a nearby planet for the first time. Which planet was it?
Venus.
No.
Darn.
The terrain of a nearby planet for the first time recently.
Yes.
That's not Mars, presumably. We've seen lots of that.
No, it's I remember seeing this article.
Is it an exoplanet or is it in our solar system, or is that part of the question?
It's in our solar system.
Oh, okay. Mercury.
No.
Okay.
We've been able to see all the planets for a long time, except for
I
Venus.
think are you thinking of Moon? Because I know there's been better pictures of Europa and Titan in the last few months.
A moon, but those aren't planets.
Well,
I know, that's what I'm saying.
You have to be specific here.
Well, it could be a moon then. Now, I'm going to give this one to Tristan because he did say Titan, and it was Titan that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Where's Endor?
We learned from 2312 that
Endor is going around Pluto, though, right?
Yeah, no Mercury.
Okay, Endor's around Mercury.
Yeah.
All right. Who was the best Doctor Who?
Oh, the fuzzy hair guy.
Matt Stone. Oh, did I get that?
Well,
no,
Baker.
Yeah, the fuzzy hair guy. Yeah, so
fuzzy hair guy. Okay.
Yeah, Tom Baker. So I got to give that to Tristan for getting the name Baker. So you're all tied, two for two.
Uh-oh.
I gotta say though, Matt Smith is my personal favorite, but I know that Baker is Baker is amazing. He'd be my. I also like Peter Davidson though. That guy's that was the 80s when I actually was able to watch those when they somewhat came out. I remember watching those a little bit.
Well, David Tennant was good. It's just he's a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like him.
So here's the tiebreaker. You're all tied for two. So
okay.
Could go any direction.
Here we go.
Nail biter for probably one of the best sci-fi series just ended recently. What was that series?
Expanse. I'm not accepting the prize though, because I won on ones that weren't difficult, and Kevin and Marty got difficult questions.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, for sure you got it.
No, throw another hard one in there.
It's Sam. You own the board game, but that doesn't mean that you can't give it away. Now you got to choose who's your favorite, Kevin or Marty.
No.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. That was another fun episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Please rate our show wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love to get some feedback. Also, write us an email. Let us know if there's a book we haven't talked about yet and you want us to talk about it. We'd love to hear more from you. Thank you again. Until next time.